Yes, and I want to tell you right now, this might not be perfect, but it'll help you get started with a little tour of what OBS is and where to look for the settings you need to get it working. I personally use eCam.com because I'm on Mac OS X and eCam works great. But if you want freeware, go with OBS and we'll look at how to get it up and running. So let me go into OBS screen share right now. And by the way, thank you to Sub FM. I'm listening to Sub FM playlist right now. I love all the stuff they got coming through their channel. Let me mute that and give you a little bit of a tour. So transition into screen share. There we go. Now you're looking at the OBS dashboard. You can see two basic windows. The one on the left is the camera land with me. Hi. And the one on the right is a picture of what's going out to the audience. Now, usually right now I would click over to Ableton and everybody would see my full screen Ableton application. But since I'm teaching about OBS, I'm going to give you a quick tour of what this platform is all about, how to set it up so it works, and why I don't use it. I don't want to say bad things about it. It is tricky to set up. So here's the first thing. We're in studio mode, which means you've got the infinity tunnel. You've got two windows. Like I said, one is a view of the screen that's going out to the broadcast, and the other one is the one on deck, and this transition button switches between them. So when I press this button, bam, we're back in camera land, and the people who are watching see only this camera view. But in the studio, I hit the transition button, doop, and here we are back where you can see what's on my screen. So those are called scenes, and you can set them up with different inputs. So the screen share scene has the Tascam Model 24, which is the audio interface. That's what's getting the sound. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Display capture is my laptop screen. And image was an overlay that it used to have the logo on top. If I don't want that, I can go down to this minus scene, minus button. Do I want to remove image? Yeah, because I don't really need it. If I want to add another overlay, I could go to any one of these devices and say, add image. It's going to go to a browser and I can grab a picture from my camera and have it overlay on top, like for my logo or something. For the room scene, we have the webcam. So that's, the picture coming in. This image, that's an older image. This image up here, Mixa Texture logo is on top. And then for the audio device is the Tascam Model 24, which is an audio interface and an analog mixing board. And I'll talk about that again in a second. If you want to add sources, you can click the plus button and get like game capture or another display or another camera or something. So you can stack it up with a whole bunch of things. You could have like picture within a picture or something like that. Notice this VU meter is bouncing right here. This is the mic coming in through the mixer. And we also have Sub FM coming in right off my little aux cable from my system computer output. And the big one, Ableton coming through here as a multi-channel track. So I know what you want to do. You want to play Ableton. You want to have great sounding audio. You want to have stereo coming through. You want to hear the bass in the feed. You want your mic on top sounding clean. And you want people to see an HD broadcast of what's on your screen. That's what I'm trying to get you to get to. So how do we get there? Let's look at some settings. A little background music. So the settings button is over here in the bottom right. Click on settings. And what do we get? First up top is some general stuff. That's kind of self-explanatory. There's things about, you can go into that on your own. I just pretty much use the default on these. Stream. Here's a big one. These are your choices. So streaming services. I can't do the drop-down menus because we are streaming. Right now I'm going out to restream.io, which is a website. If you drop down this service, you'll find YouTube, Facebook, Discord, Twitch, all those. And what you have to do is, it's just like logging into your email. You need a username and password. Well, streaming is the same thing. You need the server link and your stream key. So you get the link from your platform, your service, whatever, YouTube, your Facebook, whatever. It'll give you the stream and your private key that you paste in there. That's like your password, so don't show it, don't share it. That's your private thing. As for output, I had to look up some tutorials and learn about this. I'm not a video master, but I did get it basically working. So the streaming encoder, I can't do the drop down, X264, rescale output 1280 by 720. That means the container you're streaming into wants to see it on that size. So for like YouTube and Facebook, they want to display something that's 1280 by 720 for their player frame. So I give them that output size. Rate control, constant bit rate. Bit rate 4000 Mbps. This is related to your internet connection. So if you have a fast connection and you can get it up to 4,000 or faster, that's great. If you don't, you might have to go down a little bit. And that defines if it's going to be glitchy or blocky or pixelated or whatever. So you want to get the biggest bit rate you can. And keyframe interval 2, I don't know how to explain why, but I learned that that's the right setting, as well as CPU usage preset. These are things I just kind of don't mess with. OBS lets you record stuff, so you can set your recording file path and record the whole stream if you want to, set up the format, pick which tracks you're recording, and blah, 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 blah. But I'm not doing that because I get the replays from YouTube, so why do I record it? Audio, set my tracks 1 and 2 to 320 kbps, which is like a good quality MP3, and I'm not using the replay buffer right there. So those are my audio settings. I have all the other tracks 3 through 6 disabled. Let's look at audio sources. Sample rate 44.1. I want to keep that at the same sample rate as my Ableton universe, so everything on the Mac is going at the same sample rate. Stereo channels. Here's a whole bunch of sources. Now I want to show you where these show up, so it might make a little more sense of what you're looking at. Here in the dashboard, you can see this VU meter is bouncing. I can go to this gear and click Properties and select what device that's going to be. So we're at the Model 24, which is my audio interface. Now, let's say I had a couple other people. Maybe I have another camera in the room, or I have something else going on, or whatever. You can go to your different fields. Oh, desktop audio device. Let's just say default, okay? Pick that, click OK. Look what happens here. Default desktop audio pops up. That's my little mixer getting more sources coming in. What if I want to add another one? Audio 2 is going to be, how about device down here? What's in there? Oh, built-in microphone. Do I want that? I don't know. Webcam microphone. Oh, how about Soundflower? All those are available. And when you add them in that list, they pop up in your little mixer window. So, and I want to know if this is not in sync. It's probably not perfectly in sync. You know, you want the lips and the sound to arrive at the same time. The problem is specifically the camera signal is getting delayed because it's more data. So the vocal sound was arriving first before the webcam. So I had to delay the audio signal to match the lag time in the camera. And the way to do that, this is one field in OBS that is going to save your butt. And I wish somebody had showed me this. I had to find this on my own. I went to Advanced Audio Properties. I was digging through menus, and I found this little window for sync offset. So let's see if you'll be able to see the difference. If I set this down to 0 right now, and I transition to camera land, now I'm talking with 0 sync offset, and you might be able to see clap. You can see that the audio arrives sooner before the video picture, which we don't want. So back to Advanced Audio Properties, which device? Oh, the Tascam. I'll talk about how that works. And you have options for volume, down mix to mono, and everything. I think I had it up around 600 milliseconds, which is like more than half a second to get synchronized so that what you're seeing is going to match what you're hearing. One more time. What is that? There's my audio device. Click the Advanced Audio Properties. Go to the sync offset in milliseconds. And I had to experiment with this to get it right. I had to do streaming into my Facebook profile on private with me only and do sync offset 100 milliseconds and then clap and talk and look at it, and then do 200 milliseconds and clap and talk and figure it out. And it might be different depending on your system. So that's one thing you have to experiment, do some trial and error to get it lined up, but you can get it to work. And this might not even be working right for this broadcast, but that's okay. I'm showing you how to fix it and get the audio out of there. And that's an important little thing. So what does it mean to have an audio interface for your broadcast? Well, the basic thing is we want to have sound going into OBS. So that's coming from the inputs. I'm going to show you an illustration. So here is my old audio interface, and you can see there are 4 inputs and outputs with the jacks. There's a stereo pair for input and a stereo pair for output, and then a USB cable, and then there's a red and white unbalanced. So if this was like just conceptually in another, freestanding universe, the USB cable would be going out to OBS. Let's say I had some mics and a DJ playing that were coming in to my stereo inputs. That would be the signal that goes to the stream, okay? So this mixing board represents the same thing. It's a USB audio interface. So my computer, aux cable, coming in over here. My microphone, is coming in as analog. So all these analog signals are coming in. There's a stereo mix happening at the board. And then to get that into OBS, I physically took patch cables from my control room output. That's like the booth output on a DJ mixer. And I patched them to the inputs on these two channels, which are feeding into OBS. And notice these two channels are muted. You don't want to send the output of your recorder back to the input of your recorder. So physically connecting the cables from my audio interface output to inputs is what allows me to send Ableton or anything else from my computer into OBS. For example, here's my Ableton mix. So in Ableton, I've got this, I've got the audio output set to the Tascam board, so I can route channels and make a little analog mix, which is awesome. The board has a USB interface, it comes out to analog. Now these get bussed over to the master channel as a stereo mix. It goes up to the analog outs, and these physical cables take the left-right output back to the inputs of the audio interface. So then it goes to OBS. That was a kind of a revelation. I've had a couple conversations in the last couple of days with people who are asking me, how do I get Ableton into stream? How do I stream my audio? And how do I stream my Ableton sound? And I told them, look, take the outputs of your audio interface and jack them into the inputs, because OBS can recognize the audio interface inputs and Ableton recognizes the outputs. So you need a physical connection from the output of Ableton to the input of OBS. Let me screen share from the Ableton side to show you a little bit. Here's the session. And here is my audio prefs. Audio output device is the audio interface, which is taking digital audio, making it analog, and then I take physical cables and connect them to the inputs of OBS. If you don't want to do it that way, you have to use something that's like a bridge, an audio bridge. You might have seen Soundflower in my OBS preferences. So now I'm going to show you basically what I would do if I did not have a mixing board or an external audio interface or sound card or anything like that. And let's see if we can get this working. So first step is set Ableton to go out to Soundflower. And I think I might have to change this mix. I do. I have to set this up to go out as a stereo 1 and 2. Okay. Now I've got Ableton coming out on the master channel on outputs 1 and 2. I had these going out on different channels on the board. You might have seen me mute the channels and you heard different layers of sound. So now we're just going to hear the drum beats coming out on 1 and 2. And again, Ableton is set to go out Soundflower so that OBS can catch it. I'm going to mute my aux cable. So now it's just me talking. Now we have to add another audio device. So let's go to Settings, Audio tab. Let's say Desktop Audio Device is going to be Soundflower. When I kick this in, we might get sound. It might be loud. Excuse me if it is, but let's see if we can do that. Bing, bing, and that is kind of loud. So let's turn down that volume. And that's probably on a gap for the beats. So now the Ableton is playing out Soundflower. It's coming to the desktop audio channel, coming into here, and it's going to be going out to the broadcast stream. Now, I don't want that to continue, so I'm going to stop it on my push and go back to my settings, go to my audio tab. This Soundflower, which is a bridge application, is allowing OBS to catch the sound from Ableton and put it into the stream. But I don't want to do that because it's more difficult to monitor, and I have a totally different way to do it with an analog board. So let's turn that off and bring back in my background music. So that's basically what I wanted to show you about how to do the audio routing in OBS. Now there's a bunch more video settings we didn't talk about too much. The video tab base canvas resolution, like my laptop screen is 1280 by 800, so I set that as my base, like the canvas size of what I'm doing. And output scaled, that could be 1280 by 720, but in my output settings, I had rescale output over here to make 1280 by 720 to fit the container it's going into, which is like the Facebook frame. And then other video tabs, frames per second is 30. We're not doing 24 for film. We're not doing 29.97 drop frame like on video. Just leave it to 30. And then downscale filters are different, like kind of like an Instagram filter, but for video. That's a horrible analogy. I don't know enough to say it in a better way than that, but you could learn more about filters if you want to. Hotkeys are just key commands. You can do custom key commands if you want. And then in the advanced tab, there's some things about color matching and, audio monitoring device, built-in output. So when I was setting up the audio routing, I could have, audio monitoring go to Sunflower or something like that. So there's some cool preferences in there. Then back up the top on general. Here we are in the dashboard window. Remember, the one on the right is the picture that's going out to your audience, and the one on the left is on deck, and you have the transition button to go back and forth between them. And now I don't know if the sync is perfect on this or not. I'm a little embarrassed. It might not be that great, but hopefully I gave you an idea of how to find those problems and fix them, how to find your audio device inputs and assign them into OBS. So even if you're gaming and you want to have like headphones monitoring and a headphone mic going out, and then monitoring game sound and monitoring other people's mics from other players and listening to background music at the same time, you could set up all those multiple sources, have them all coming into your stream, and get it so you're monitoring some, streaming some, and it all works out. It gets more and more complicated as you add more devices, but for a basic level of what we're doing as making tutorials or something like that, you should be able to get Ableton sound running and microphone sound running without too much hassle. And one more little detail, you aren't going to be able to see, but down here in this rack, there is a little small gate and compressor where if I turn off the gate, you can hear the fan noise. And then I roll that gate in there. So you only hear my voice talking. You don't hear the background noise. That can make it a lot nicer, because when your gate is off, like, you can hear me breathing, snuffling. And that doesn't make your stream better. So it really helps a lot to have a noise gate to just remove the little extra stuff in the background so people don't hear your feet shuffling on the carpet or your wrists moving on the desk, or like the sound of you breathing in and out your nose. If you dial in the gate too hard, it makes your voice chop out in between. So you don't want to have that. And the biggest thing I like about having a mixing board right here is that, let's say I'm working on a mix where first I'm playing the full stereo mix and it's loud, I can pull the fader down. But then if we go into mixing like a reverb, the reverb by itself in solo is going to be a lot quieter than the full mix. So I want to be able to take that reverb, push it up, and get it really loud in the broadcast so people can hear the difference when they're listening on YouTube and understand, why am I EQing this reverb? And then when I want to pull the full mix back in, I just take it down by hand. And the thing I'm hearing in my headphones, I'm monitoring the same sound that you're hearing. So I know that people who are watching the broadcast are hearing good quality and it's working. And then of course, in the back of my mind, I'm watching my VU meters to make sure that the level overall going out to the sound is not going to get jacked up into the red. You got to keep an eye on gain staging in your streaming, just like gain staging in your mixing. That's all part of the same thing. So that's it. I want to keep this short enough. If you have any questions, type them in the comments and the YouTube video. Please subscribe, like the channel. Let me know how you're doing, where you're at, what you need help with. And I'm happy to do more videos like this in the Mixotexture Facebook group every day to help people out getting set up to do fun stuff with Ableton, streaming, sharing, and dealing with this weird quarantine situation. We are all having a lot of studio time, to put it nicely, so I hope you can do something creative and not get too bummed out about world news. I try to read as much news as I can, and it does take some emotional work to process all that. But if you can put it into music, you're a step ahead. Or even just doing music is like a way to just press pause on the freaking internet and be like, I'm gonna go into the base and not sweat the news just for an hour and then come back and see what happened while I was gone. So that's what I got for you today. Thanks everybody for watching. I love being part of this Ableton worldwide community.